The neon glow of the 24-hour laundromat cast eerie shadows against the empty machines, their metallic frames looming like silent sentinels in the dead of night. With a sense of unease prickling at the back of my neck, I stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind me. As I approached the row of dryers, a chill swept through the air, raising goosebumps on my skin. Ignoring the nagging feeling of unease, I reached into the nearest dryer, my fingers trembling as they brushed against the soft fabric of my clothes. But as I grasped the fabric and began to pull, something seized hold of my wrist with a grip like iron, dragging me forward with a force that sent shockwaves of terror coursing through my veins. My heart thundered in my chest as I stumbled, my eyes widening in horror as I realized there was no one else in the laundromat, no one to hear my screams. With a sickening lurch, I was pulled into the depths of the dryer, the darkness swallowing me whole as I tumbled head over heels into the abyss. Panic clawed at my throat as I fought against the unseen force, my mind reeling with the impossibility of what was happening. In the darkness, time lost all meaning as I was buffeted by unseen currents, my senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of whispers that echoed through the void. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to leer at me with malevolent intent. Just when I thought I could bear it no longer, the darkness began to recede, giving way to a blinding light that seared my eyes and scorched my skin. Blinking against the glare, I found myself standing in a place that defied all logic, a vast expanse of barren wasteland stretching into infinity, its desolate landscape devoid of life or hope. But as I stumbled forward, a shape emerged from the shadows, a monstrous entity with gnashing teeth and empty eyes that glowed with a sickly green light. It loomed over me like a towering colossus, its presence suffocating and oppressive. With a voice like grinding stones, it spoke, a guttural rasp that sent shivers down my spine. "Welcome to the realm of the dryer," it said, its words dripping with malice. "You are now mine to devour, body and soul." Terrified beyond measure, I tried to flee, but the ground beneath me trembled, swallowing me whole as I was dragged down into the darkness once more. And as the echoes of my screams faded into oblivion, I knew that I had become just another victim of the laundromat's insatiable hunger, a fate sealed in the depths of the dryer's endless abyss. The sea stretched out before them like an endless expanse of darkness, the waves whispering secrets lost to time. But as the ship sailed further into the night, a strange mist began to envelop them, thick and suffocating, like a shroud of the damned. Unease rippled through the crew as they watched the mist descend, tendrils curling around the ship like ghostly fingers. But it was the voices that haunted them most, the distant cries of the drowned echoing through the fog, their lamentations carried on the wind like a mournful dirge. At first, the sailors dismissed the voices as tricks of the mind, the product of long nights spent adrift on the unforgiving sea. But as the mist thickened and the voices grew louder, they realized the horrifying truth. Their ship was sailing through a realm haunted by the souls of the drowned, trapped between life and death for all eternity. With each passing hour, the voices grew more insistent, their words becoming clearer and more desperate. They spoke of lost loves and broken dreams, of lives cut short by the cruel whims of the ocean. And as the sailors listened, they felt the weight of their own mortality pressing down upon them, a reminder of the fragility of life in the face of nature's wrath. But it was not only the voices that tormented them. The mist itself seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, twisting and contorting into monstrous shapes that lurked just beyond the edge of sight. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay. As the night wore on, the sailors huddled together on the deck, their eyes wide with fear as they whispered tales of ghost ships and cursed seas. But no amount of superstition could save them from the horror that awaited them in the heart of the mist. For when dawn finally broke and the mist began to dissipate, the sailors found themselves adrift in a sea of corpses, a vast graveyard of ships lost to the depths, their skeletal frames rising from the water like the fingers of a drowning giant. And as they gazed upon the wreckage, the voices of the drowned rose once more, their cries echoing through the silence like a warning from beyond the grave. For in the heart of the mist, where the line between life and death is blurred, there are horrors that defy comprehension, horrors that haunt the souls of men for all eternity. The clock struck midnight as Sarah settled into her couch, the glow of the television casting flickering shadows across the room. With a bowl of popcorn in hand, she eagerly pressed play on the movie she had rented, a thriller recommended by a friend. As the opening credits rolled, Sarah felt a sense of unease settle over her, a feeling of déjà vu that whispered of forgotten memories and hidden truths. But she brushed it aside, chalking it up to the late hour and her overactive imagination. But as the movie unfolded, Sarah's unease grew, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched scenes that felt all too familiar. The characters spoke words that echoed her own thoughts, their actions mirroring her own experiences with uncanny accuracy. With a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, Sarah realized the horrifying truth. The movie was about her own life, a chilling reenactment of events she had long tried to forget. Panic gripped her as she watched herself on screen, her past laid bare for all to see. But as the movie reached its climax, Sarah's worst fears were realized. The protagonist met a grisly end, her life snuffed out in a twist of fate that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for her phone, desperate for some semblance of reality in the face of the nightmare unfolding before her. But as she dialed her own number, there was no answer, only silence on the other end of the line. In that moment, Sarah knew with a chilling certainty that she was already dead, that the movie was not a mere coincidence, but a grim reminder of her own mortality. She had wandered into the realm of the dead, trapped in a loop of endless horror with no hope of escape. As the credits rolled and the screen faded to black, Sarah was left alone in the darkness, her mind reeling with the realization that she was little more than a ghost, a specter doomed to wander the halls of her own past for all eternity. And as the echoes of her own screams faded into the night, Sarah knew that she would never find peace, that she would forever be haunted by the echoes of her own existence, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no awakening. High atop a desolate hill stood the ancient English castle, its stone walls weathered by centuries of time, and its turrets piercing the brooding clouds like daggers. It was a place of dark secrets and forgotten sorrows, where the whispers of the dead mingled with the howling winds that swept across the barren landscape. 10 friends, seeking adventure and thrill, had decided to rent the castle for the weekend, lured by the promise of grandeur and mystery. Little did they know that their presence would awaken the dormant spirits that haunted its halls, stirring them from their restless slumber. As the group settled in for the night, the castle seemed to come alive with a malevolent energy, its shadows shifting and writhing like living things. Unease settled over the friends like a suffocating blanket, but they laughed it off, dismissing the strange occurrences as figments of their imagination. But as the witching hour approached, and the moon cast its pale light through the stained glass windows, the true horror of the castle revealed itself. From the depths of the darkness, the ghosts emerged, a legion of tortured souls condemned to wander the halls for eternity. With hollow eyes and twisted faces, they descended upon the unsuspecting friends, their ethereal forms flickering in and out of existence like phantoms. Terror seized the group as they realized the true nature of their predicament, their screams drowned out by the mournful wails of the damned. One by one, the ghosts claimed their victims, dragging them into the shadows where their torments awaited. Some were driven mad by visions of their darkest fears, while others were consumed by the flames of their own guilt and regret. But amidst the chaos, one of the friends, a brave soul named Emily, refused to succumb to the terror that gripped the castle. With a courage born of desperation, she ventured into the heart of the darkness, determined to uncover the truth behind the curse that bound the spirits to the castle's walls. As she delved deeper into the labyrinthine corridors and hidden chambers, Emily unearthed secrets that had long been buried, betrayals, murders, and unspeakable atrocities committed in the name of power and greed. And as she pieced together the puzzle of the castle's bloody history, Emily came face to face with the source of the spirit's wrath, a malevolent entity that fed on the suffering of the living, its hunger insatiable and its thirst for vengeance unquenchable. With a fierce determination, Emily confronted the entity, her heart pounding with fear as she stood toe-to-toe with the embodiment of evil itself. But in a final act of defiance, she banished the entity back to the depths of the darkness from whence it came, breaking the curse that had plagued the castle for centuries. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Emily emerged from the castle, her friends at her side, their faces pale and their spirits shaken but alive. And as they looked back at the ancient fortress looming in the distance, they knew that they had faced horrors beyond imagining and emerged victorious. But in the depths of their souls, they also knew that the echoes of the damned would linger forever, a haunting reminder of the darkness that dwells within us all, waiting to be unleashed at the slightest provocation. It was a night like any other as I made my way home from a long day at work. The city streets bathed in the glow of flickering streetlights. But as I walked, an unsettling feeling crept over me, a sensation of being watched, of unseen eyes lingering in the shadows. Glancing over my shoulder, I saw nothing but the empty street stretching into the darkness, yet the feeling persisted, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness like a persistent whisper. With each step, the sensation grew stronger, until it felt as though I was being followed by an invisible presence. My heart quickened with a mixture of fear and curiosity, my footsteps echoing through the silent night. Finally, I reached the sanctuary of my apartment building, relief flooding through me as I stepped into the dimly lit lobby. But as I turned to enter the elevator, I froze, my blood turning to ice in my veins. Reflected in the polished metal doors stood my exact double, a perfect mirror image of myself, down to the smallest detail. Their eyes met mine, twin orbs filled with a haunting emptiness that sent shivers down my spine. For a moment, we stood locked in a silent exchange, the air thick with unspoken questions. Who was this stranger who wore my face? What twisted game of fate had brought us together in this surreal moment? Without a word, the doppelganger stepped forward, their movements mirroring my own with eerie precision. Panic surged through me as I stumbled backward, my mind reeling with disbelief. As the elevator doors slid shut, I was plunged into darkness, the sound of my own ragged breaths echoing through the confined space. But even in the darkness, I could feel the presence of my double, a cold chill that lingered like a shadow. The ride seemed to stretch on for an eternity, each passing moment filled with a sense of dread that threatened to consume me whole. And when the doors finally opened, I stepped out into a world that had become a twisted reflection of my own. The streets were deserted, the buildings looming like silent sentinels in the night. But everywhere I turned, I saw them, my doppelganger, their presence a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within. With each step, I felt myself being drawn further into the abyss, my mind unraveling like a thread pulled taut. Reality seemed to warp and twist around me, a nightmarish landscape of distorted reflections and half-formed memories. And as I stumbled through the empty streets, pursued by the specter of my own likeness, I realized the horrifying truth. I was trapped in a world of shadows, a realm where doppelgangers roamed free, and reality was but a fleeting illusion. In the end, I could only surrender to the darkness, embracing the embrace of my double as we faded into the void together. Two souls bound by fate in an eternal dance of mirrored madness.